Empire State of Sports with Landon.
The Yankees have really, I think, made a mess of themselves this all season.
This is the worst.
Cashman's insistent that they're not running this roster back. He's acting like we can't see.
It's not a lie, if you believe it.
It just screams spare parts to me. It screams, let's put a donut on a car and then ride it on the highway for 500 miles and hope it doesn't fall off. We are back. We are back, guys. Someone turned the volume down on my headset here. Realize that someone turned the channel volume down on 2. I barely hear myself. But we are back. Yo, what's going on? Baseball's back. More importantly, I'm back. Baseball's back. Happy time for me. Happy time for all baseball fans. But you know who made some headlines? New York Yankees. Let's get into it on Empire State of Sports right now. If you wanted a statement weekend, I mean, look, the Yankees gave you exactly what you wanted. They opened up 3-0, had an amazing opening day over on Netflix. Didn't like some of the shenanigans going on over there. I know I said that I was kind of a fan of the game on Netflix. Production value was trash. It was terrible. I don't know who was directing that, but the production value is really bad on Netflix. Which is crazy because I know they had a lot of funding because got all those celebrities on, but couldn't show the first ABS challenge because of the Usos. Listen, I'm a huge wrestling fan. Everyone knows that. Love wrestling. Going to WrestleMania in a few weeks. Excited for that. John Cena going to be the host of that. Really cool. But you can't miss a very historic moment like that. That was a historic moment. Not only for the Yankees, not only for Jose Caballero, but for the whole history of baseball. It's the first time an ABS challenge has happened in non-exhibition play. Obviously, we saw it in spring training the past few years. Going to talk a little bit more about ABS as the show goes on because there was a few moments yesterday, particularly in that Twins-Orioles game that I want to touch on. But going back to the Yankees, obviously opened up 3-0, outscored the Giants 13-1, and did it with that shutout on opening night. The shutout in the second game, first time since the 90s. I believe a team has opened up with back-to-back shutouts, the 18th time in MLB history that back-to-back starters have, went on, have had shutouts. I just want to make sure my audio is working because the board is showing something it normally does not show. Please hold. Oh. Board is working. Good to know. Good to know. Board is working. But yeah, back to the Yankees in opening night. Did it with that shutout. That's kind of the weekend that really made me as a Yankees fan feel hopeful, maybe feel very hopeful in that pitching staff, which I feel like had a lot of question marks coming into the first few weeks without Garrett Cole, without Carlos Rodon, because it really wasn't just one ace carrying the load. Obviously, Max Fried had a great start opening night. Had a few moments a few hiccups, but didn't give up a run, obviously. And Cam Schlittler looks like, man, he's going to be an ace. Only allowed to go about a little bit over 65 pitches, I think. I think he went 68. Kept the pressure on. And Will Warren, how about Will Warren, guys? That's one guy I was pretty nervous about because he's shown times that he can implode. But Will Warren looked very, very good on Saturday. Let's break down that series a little bit more on Empire State of Sports. Obviously talking baseball. Going to talk Mets next segment. And we got Empire State Check coming up. Later on, going to talk ABS in that. Going to talk the Knicks And something about Aaron Judge again, because the narrative around Aaron Judge just won't die, even though he hit 2 home runs. But looking a little deeper into opening night, Max Fried gave the Yankees a very clean start, went over 5 innings. And, the offense broke it open in that second inning, had a 5-run second inning, a lot due to Trent Grisham with that 2-run triple. Still don't like Trent Grisham. Still really upset that Jason Dominguez is starting the year in the minor leagues, because I know how detrimental it can be to a young ball player to not get the playing time they need at the major league level. Like, look, assuming that there is going to be a lockout and there's going to be no season next year, it's scary to think that Jason Dominguez might have 2 years straight of not playing in the major leagues, assuming he doesn't come up again this year. But going back to that opening night game, Ryan McMahon had a 2-run single in that game, getting some production from the bottom of the lineup. Really liked the bottom of the lineup outside of Austin Wells. Jose Caballero added in the second game. Going to get to that in just a second. And the Yankees finished with 10 hits and never let the Giants score a run. Yeah, really, the bullpen did really well that game too. I can't remember who pitched in that game. I think Tim Hill got into that game. Take a look at the box score really quick. Go back to opening night on Netflix. Obviously, Max Fried got the start. I just want to take a look at that bullpen and how they did in that game, because I know they were shut down in the final 2. Obviously, they didn't give up a run, but I just want to see who pitched, because I can't remember off the top of my head right now. So Bird came in to relieve Fried in the 7th. Didn't give up a run. Struck out 1. Didn't allow a base runner. Hedrick. I really like this kid, Hedrick. Very good lefty. I think one thing the Yankees lacked in their bullpen the past few years, especially the year they made the World Series in 24, which led to that abysmal Nestor Cortez decision, was the fact that they didn't really have any lefties to go to out of that bullpen. It was kind of disappointing. Now we have this kid, Hedrick. Really like him. Think he's doing really well. There's a kid, Joe LaSorsa, out in Pittsburgh. Shout out Joe. Pitched really well for Team Italy. I would have liked to see the Yankees go out and get him, because, listen, he had activated his move-up clause in that Pirates contract. Thought another lefty wouldn't hurt. But Hedrick, I guess, will do. Doval's looked good to start the year. He's losing some velocity on his cutter, which I think is actually intentional, because I think he has better control of it when it's a few notches down. Used to have the 100-mile-an-hour cutter. Now it's sitting at about 96, 97. Not a 6'7" joke, guys. But I like this new form of Camilo Doval that we are seeing for the Yankees. He's done a great job. Now, moving on to the second game of that series, obviously Cam Schlittler's outing is legitimately pretty much the entire story of that game. It extended that, the shutout streak. It meant a lot for Yankees history. It meant a lot for baseball history. It meant a lot to cement, hey, this Yankees rotation is legit. Doesn't matter that Garrett Cole is out. Doesn't matter that Carlos Rodon is out. Doesn't matter that Clark Schmidt isn't coming back until later on. Doesn't matter that Luis Hill starting out in AAA. We got guys on this roster that are shut down and can shut just about any lineup down. Look, I know the Giants don't have the best lineup, but this pitching was very, very impressive to me. And the biggest takeaway wasn't really the score. Look, Yankees struggled to produce runs up until that blast by Giancarlo Stanton to put it was Aaron Judge, then Giancarlo Stanton to put the Yankees up. That was really good to see. Good to see Judge, after slumping on opening night, going 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts. After that, whole WBC debacle, to get right back at it and hit that home run. Really good sight from Aaron Judge. Yankees have struggled to get any production outside of Aaron Judge, but opening night, they kind of turned that narrative around and got production from pretty much everyone outside of Aaron Judge. But the real story of this weekend to me was run prevention. Yankees pitching absolutely incredible, moving to the third game. Will Warren went 4 1/3, allowed 5 hits, did break the scoreless streak, allowed an earned run, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. But Aaron Judge homered again. Ben Rice doubled in 2 runs. And the bullpen was absolutely dominant across 4 2/3 innings. Had a plethora of arms come into that game. Saw Bird come in again. Saw Hedrick come in again. Saw Bednar shut the door. I think did Doval get into that game? No, Tim Hill got into that game. Tim Hill, absolutely incredible double play machine. This guy's arm is made out of rubber. He's absolutely prepared to pitch in 80 games this season, which is incredible. Love Tim Hill. Tim Hill has really been a godsend for this Yankees roster. Getting into a little bit of what I liked and what I didn't from this weekend. Already talked about it a little bit. Obviously, pitching was a huge difference this weekend. Winning in different ways. Had a blowout, a shutout, and then that tighter finish to end the series on Saturday. Strong early sign. And listen, Aaron Boone has been pushing all the right buttons so far, going to all the right arms. Good sight for me to see. I think he looks a lot more confident out there as a manager. Let's talk about Aaron Judge a little bit too, looking a little bit more confident, getting a jab into Rafi Devers as he chugged into second. Judge looking at him, pointing and going, wiping the sweat off his brow. That was funny to see. And then the late innings has been a problem for the Yankees as of late. Bednar, in his 2 games, second and third game for the Yankees this season, got 2 quick outs the first appearance, then allowed a base runner, and then another base runner, and then made everyone think, oh no, here we go again. But he's able to get out of it, and then he allows 2 base runners off the get-go in game 3, and he's able to get out of it. Look, I think he's a Jim Wetland type closer where he needs runners on base to get out of it, which is kind of scary, but I'd like to see a better closer. But there's not many good closers in the MLB right now, so I think Bednar will do. But heading to the first question I'm going to pose, did this weekend prove to me that the Yankees have the best pitching staff in baseball? Yeah. It was a great sight. I think, Max Fried, obviously the opener mattered because it's exactly what he has to do right now. He has to be the ace of this Yankee team while Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon is out. That's a big task, but we've seen Max Fried rise to the occasion on the Yankees, really pitch up to the situation. Lights out in opening night. Went 6 1/3. Couldn't ask for a better start on opening night. Pitchers opening weekend tend to not go that long. So to see Max Fried go 6 1/3, very, very impressive from him. And then you had Cam Schlittler, the kid, the Schlitt. Love this kid. Absolutely incredible. He my dog. We all know. He is absolutely incredible, Cam Schlittler. Just an absolute demon. He's really just like mini Garrett Cole. Pumps 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Has wicked movement. He has 3 different types of fastballs, if you didn't know. Has a 4-seam, which rises. Has a cutter, which goes this way. And then has a sinker, which goes this way. Really hard to tell as a hitter when you have 3 pitches that go the exact same speed that break in 3 different directions. And I think that's why he's so successful. He doesn't really need to throw breaking pitches, but let's mention that killer sweeper he has. And he also has a changeup, obviously, because all pitchers do. That's 5 pitches that can really throw a hitter off. Love what I saw from Cam Schlittler in that second game. I think he is the ace of the future for the Yankees. Have a lot of talk about the Mets, future and their rotation. Haven't heard a lot about that from the Yankees. Meanwhile, they have so many homegrown talent on that team. LeGrande's in the minors, Heels in the minors right now. Those are two guys that can contribute right now to this team. LeGrande yesterday pitched in AAA, was hitting 102 on the gun, and was absolutely phenomenal through 4 1/3, if you didn't know. Will Warren, the homegrown guy for us right now, went 4 1/3 and was solid in his first outing. Not amazing, but solid. I think his issue is sometimes he tries to be a little too perfect with it. And I think his movement is good enough that he doesn't have to be perfect. And I think he will learn that as time goes on. Look, it's not ace level, but he is a solid 2 or 3 starter, I think, Will Warren in the future. And he's also shown that he is willing to be a long man out the bullpen, which is very versatile for the Yankees. Luis Hill, the other guy I mentioned down in the minors, can also do the same thing. So to say that the Yankees don't produce pitching homegrown, silly. Now, looking a little bit at the bullpen, because I said this is the Yankees pitching staff as a whole, had 4 2/3 scoreless in the finale, like I mentioned. Bednar got 2 saves. And across the whole series, the bullpen did absolutely phenomenal. Did not allow a run. I think there are a few teams that are up there with the Yankees for best pitching staff. A team that did really well this past week was Seattle. Obviously, they have a bunch of guys. Hancock, a guy that went on yesterday, had 6 no-hit innings. Really good. They just seem like they can produce pitchers like crazy. Might have a factory somewhere there in Washington, just producing demon pitchers. George Kirby, a native of Rye, New York, obviously the ace over there, is absolutely incredible. Yankees face off against Seattle tonight at 9:30, if you didn't know. And obviously, a lot of people are going to say this proves more about the Giants hitting, that it's absolutely egregious, which it is. My answer to that is this. That still doesn't explain how the Yankees controlled pretty much every situation in this series. The Giants had chances to score runs. They just couldn't capitalize because the Yankees pushed all the right buttons. So I'm going to squash that right there. But look, the pitching staff looks absolutely great. The next question is whether the offense could really keep up with that pitching, because we saw that be the issue against Toronto last year. I've seen that be the issue for the Yankees pretty much the past few years in the playoffs, especially in the World Series in 24. Struggled with that offense and really couldn't come back from that, besides in that game that they did win in Game 4. But talking about that offense, yes, that offense is still a little bit inconsistent. I'm going to mention a few guys that I didn't really like. That back half of the lineup still leaves a little bit to be desired. Some people at the top, Trent Grisham. Some guys off to slow starts that I think will rebound. Well, let's get into that. So, yes, there's definitely still a case that the Yankees lineup is too inconsistent to win a World Series. I do. 13 runs in 3 games. Pretty good. But outside of that first game, offense left a lot on the table for me. Left a lot to be desired. Seems like I think they had 8 hits on Saturday, but it didn't really feel like it because they only scored 3 runs. Game 1 had that 7-run, 10-hit performance. Game 2 had 3 runs, and Game 3 had 3 runs. I think they only had 3 hits on Saturday. I think it was. But look, Aaron Judge has picked it up after that opening day. Had 2 home runs. Look, doesn't erase the fact that he had 4 strikeouts on a national stage on Netflix. But let's be honest. Guy dented an ambulance. There we go. I'm going to mess around with these a little bit today. Have some fun. Ben Rice obviously had that key 2 RBI double in game 3. Caballero had 1 hit on opening day. In game 2, he was hitless on Saturday with 3 Ks and 4 at-bats. Just can't have that. He's a guy that I feel like is too all or nothing for a guy with his skill set. Should be a guy that's looking to just hit the ball just past the infield, get those singles, because he could turn singles into doubles, turn singles into triples, vice versa, because his speed is so versatile. And then Wells has not been very good to start the season. 2 hits opening day with a walk, has had 3 strikeouts since. Just leaving a lot to be desired from that catcher spot. Austin Wells is someone I had a lot of faith in rookie season. Last year didn't really live up to that rookie season. And now he's still leaving a lot on the table to be desired for that Yankees lineup. Everyone else, it's really the same story. Everyone else cools down when Aaron Judge heats up. But when you have Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton hot, this lineup really is untouchable. Untouchable, unstoppable. This is WIUR. Sorry, Robbie. I know you're listening. But yeah, the Yankees offense still a little bit inconsistent. I would like to see more out of that bottom half. Cody Bellinger has been doing really well, though. Didn't mention him. 363 average across the first 3 games. He's a guy that just gets on base. I think he's our perfect leadoff hitter, but unfortunately, the lineup doesn't really have anyone else that could take his spot at the 2 spot in the order right now, unless you want to put Giancarlo Stanton in front of Aaron Judge. Like, someone in front of Aaron Judge is going to see pitches. So maybe that's a spot for Trent Grisham. Trent Grisham, to me, not the leadoff hitter on this team. You can't have a guy. Yes, he has the speed tool set, but he doesn't have the contact. He has a pretty good eye, but sometimes I feel like he gets a little swing happy in those modes and can be detrimental as we get further into the season. So look, I want to see more from Austin Wells. I want to see more from Jose Caballero. I want to see more from some of the depth guys like Randall Grichuk, who got a start and went hitless. I want to see some more from Trent Grisham, the guy that we gave $22 million. Yes, had that big hit on opening day, but since then has pretty much been a big fat 0. So the issue really is that it seems like when everyone's hot, Aaron Judge is not. And when Aaron Judge is hot, everyone else is not. So the verdict for me on the Yankees is simple across 3 games. Obviously very early out of 162 to give a proper verdict. But the pitching looks elite right now, and the offense looks good enough to win, but not yet fully trustworthy to me on a week-to-week basis. This is a good place to be in March. We're at a really good spot right now, and I think we could only go up from here. And the kind of place, that turns into real problems is if the offense stays stagnant and doesn't really improve as we head to the later months of the baseball season. I forgot to mention Jazz Chisholm. Jazz Chisholm had 2 singles and 5 strikeouts, I think, on the weekend. Another guy that's really left a lot to be desired for the Yankees. Jazz has to do better at that spot. Jazz is a guy I really like personally, but I think he put too much stress on himself saying he went out there and said, I'm looking for a 50-50 year. I think I'm capable of doing so. Jazz, all I want you to do is hit 30 home runs, hit 260, not strike out very much, and keep playing that defense you play over there at second, because it's really good. I don't need 50 home runs from you. You could steal bags. I know. You can hit home runs. I know. But don't go out looking for that, because I feel like your best tools is when you get on base using that speed, like Jose Caballero that I mentioned earlier, turning those singles or doubles into bigger hits. But as I mentioned, I think the Yankees still have some stuff to improve on. Play Seattle tonight, and Cal Raleigh, the 2 people that were in the MVP race, and Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh going head to head tonight at 9:40 over on the YES Network. We'll be right back on Empire State of Sports live from WIUR, the official radio network of Iona University.
This is WIUR Radio.
Hi, I'm Morgan Beastie from the Ionian, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Are you looking for the latest scoop on campus news, sports, and more? Check out the Ionian, Iona University's very own award-winning student newspaper. We keep you up to date with everything happening on and off campus. Want to know about the big game, the latest campus event? It's all in the Ionian. Join the conversation. Read, write, and get involved. Visit www.theionian.org or pick up a copy around campus. Stay informed, stay connected. Now, back to WIUR, Iona University Radio.
Talked about the Yankees. Let's go to the other side of town, to Queens, where the New York Mets took 2 out of 3 from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Look, the Mets opened with the loudest game of the weekend to me. That being when they pretty much destroyed Paul Skeens in game 1. No one expected that. I saw something that said Paul Skeens would pretty much have to give up two runs or less in every start the rest of the season in order to finish with the same ERA he did last year. So the Mets absolutely ruined any chance of Paul Skeens repeating that historic season we saw last year with Pittsburgh. But then they won a tighter one, went to extras in game 2, couldn't hit in the regular innings, scored 0. Both teams really just could not hit. It was very frigid out in Queens that day, but no excuses for an offense that has that much star power, that much money invested into it. You know, new shiny toy and Bo Bichette not really doing much. But let's go game by game in that series, because obviously the result, not as good as the Yankees was, 2 out of 3, but still a good start regardless, winning that first opening series. Mets won first game 11-7 against the Pirates. I mentioned the Mets bounced Paul Skeens in the first inning, scored 5 in that first inning against Paul Skeens. But look, I got to look at what happened in that inning. I got to look at O'Neal Cruz pretty much forgetting how to play outfield because he doesn't have a pair of sunglasses on. That just can't happen. You know, Brett Beatty's bases loaded triple was absolutely incredible. Brett Beatty's been a guy that's really been hinged from being meeting those expectations that Mets fans had for him, being a top prospect just a few years ago, not really living up to the expectations. Now, in the second half last year, saw him heat up, and he's taken that momentum now as, you know, baseball gets back into full swing. Lindor scored 3 runs, had 3 walks. Lindor does a great job at that leadoff spot of setting the table for the 2 behind him in Bo Bichette and Juan Soto. Juan Soto has gotten 5 hits and has been pretty good. Well, Soto got on base and was also a part of that first inning avalanche for the Mets. Now looking at game 2, this is more controlled, with a reminder that not every Mets victory is going to be a slugfest, similar to the Yankees, where the Yankees scored 7 and then pretty much couldn't score in the second game until Aaron Judge broke it open. Look, it's useful because you have to realize that this Mets team is not going to explode every game. This Mets team is not going to score 5 or more every single game for you. I know that's a little worrisome with the pitching side, not really having much outside of Freddie Peralta, in my opinion. Nolan McLean, pretty good, pretty solid. I think he will be really good, but I think he still has a little bit more time to get acclimated to the league. A lot of young guys in that rotation going to be interested to see how they do. And then moving on to game 3, the one that the Mets lost 7-4. Went to extra innings again in that third game. Mets couldn't finish that one off. I think the Mets' problems really glared to me in games 2 and 3. That when Juan Soto isn't getting the big hits that he's supposed to, saw him strike out in a big moment yesterday. It's hard for the Mets to bounce back from that. Hard for, to self-correct. But Mets obviously couldn't finish that one off, had a deep fly ball at the end of that game. I think it was by Jorge Polanco. Just didn't have enough juice on it. Would have pretty much won the game for the Mets. Makes the series feel a little bit less complete. Makes that good feeling the Mets had after games 1 and 2 feel a little bit less so just disappointing for them. But moving on to the first question I'm going to ask myself, did the Mets domination prove anything to me? Look, it proved the Mets can hit elite pitching. It proved the Mets have the star power to hit elite pitching. But I would not take it that much beyond that. I wouldn't say that Paul Skeens is broken. I wouldn't say that the Mets broke Paul Skeens. I wouldn't say that it was even the Mets offense that bounced Paul Skeens in the first inning when they scored 5 runs. But the next 2 games really brought that offense down to earth, made them look ordinary. So that's why I don't take much into account from that first game. If you look at the game 1 stats, had 11 runs on 11 hits, had a home run by Carson Bench, the rookie. Congratulations to Carson Bench for getting his first major league home run. Think that kid's got a lot of talent. Has an absolute cannon in right field as well. Doesn't make up for the fact that Juan Soto just can't play outfield. But that's another story. Had that 5-run first inning, but I can't get past the fact that Oneil Cruz pretty much was the reason that the Mets scored 5 runs. Paul Skeens would have gotten out of that inning, I think, allowing 2, if not for maybe even 0, if not for Oneil Cruz taking a step in. Look, rule number 1, your first step is always backwards because it's easier to run in than to run backwards. I think I put more of that 5-run first inning on Oneil Cruz than I do the Mets offense, whether you agree with me or not. I know I have a few Mets fan friends, Robbie Basil being one of them, probably does not agree with that. Bo Bichette has been very disappointing too for that offense. And then Oneil Cruz just misses a routine pop fly into shallow center field because he doesn't have a pair of sunglasses on. And what I found funny is he went out there the next inning and still didn't have a pair of sunglasses. Can Oakley please send him a pair of sunglasses, please? That being said, don't think Oneil Cruz is going to be a center fielder for the future. I think that he's more of a DH. I know that arm is an absolute cannon, but I just don't know where he fits in defensively for Pittsburgh. But yeah, that Paul Skeens domination from the Mets didn't really prove much to me. It did in the moment because I was pretty much just in pure shock. The fact that Paul Skeens gave up 5 runs in the first and left on 36 pitches. I don't know if that was damage control for the fact that they didn't want to inflate Paul Skeens' ERA any more than it already was, because that's a huge selling point for Pittsburgh is Paul Skeens. And Paul Skeens is probably going to be a trade piece down the future. Could see the Mets getting involved in that. Definitely see the Yankees getting involved in that. Made an offer with 4 top prospects over the summer, but couldn't get anything done. That was reported. That was really cool. I think Paul Skeens will be a Yankee in the future. I do think Tyreek Skubal is the guy that the Mets will end up getting as their shutdown ace. Because Freddie Peralta, let's admit, he was not it in that opening day start. He gave up 5 runs himself there and really kept Pittsburgh in that game up until the later innings because Freddie Peralta couldn't be the shutdown guy in game 1. As much as that was a bad sign for Paul Skeens, it was a bad sign for Freddie Peralta as well, I have to admit. Now moving on to the offensive side as a whole, that top 3 has left a lot on the table for the Mets. Bo Bichette, big man. I love Bo Bichette. I love that Bo Bichette hits for contact. I love that Bo Bichette is really good offensively. I don't like the fact that Bo Bichette is playing third base. I did not get a chance to look at his error numbers over the weekend. I think he had 1 or 2, but the offensive side for Bo Bichette this weekend was very, very worrying for me. And I think, and I'm not even a Mets fan. It was worrying for me because I just like Bo Bichette as a player. Went 1 for 17, had 8 strikeouts to start his Mets tenure. That's rough. If that was anyone starting their tenure off for the Yankees that way, I feel like that would be a lot bigger headline in the news right now than it is for Bo Bichette on the Mets. Obviously did contribute in game 1, had an RBI, but the strikeout total in 8 and 17 at-bats, that's just not Bo Bichette. That's not the Bo Bichette that I'm used to, the guy that's the contact machine, the guy that is known for getting on base, setting the table. I don't know if it's the fact that he's not in the same spot in the order he was in Toronto, but maybe he's still, rehabbing from that late season injury he had. Maybe the pressure of just being in a new environment, being at a new position is getting to him. I don't know, but 1 for 17 with 8 strikeouts really does raise the alarm for me. Then you move to Francisco Lindor. Gotta admit, not really impressed by Francisco Lindor to start the season, but I'm not surprised, to say the least, because Francisco Lindor really does not have great starts to the season. Dates back to when he was with the Guardians or the Indians. Can't remember if he ever played for the Guardians while it was under the Guardians name, but he was productive opening day, had 3 walks, 3 runs. That's great from a leadoff hitter. You want to see those runs mean a lot from the leadoff spot because it proves that you're getting on and you're setting the table for the meat of that order in the 2, 3, 4 spots. But that's a great sign for the Mets, I think. Hasn't really done much outside of that. Had a triple as well, I believe, did Francisco Lindor. But now to the man of the hour, Juan Soto. Juan Soto had a big spot yesterday. Could have ended this game early for the Mets. Had runners on second and third, 1 out, counts 3-2. He's facing Mason Montgomery. And he just looks foolish, swinging at a pitch at his head. Nice little sword for Montgomery, but not a good look for Juan Soto, who we don't see do that often at all. Shows me he was in swing mode and swing mode only. Look, that was a key turning point, and to me, those are bigger spots than just the 5-hit total he has in 14 at-bats. Yes, 5 hits and 14 at-bats. Pretty good. A little over a 333 average. I want to say 356, 360 around there, but not the hits that they need Juan Soto to be getting. They need Juan Soto to be the run-producing bat in that order, and I think that's why I point to him as to why that offense really struggled. Why that offense really struggled in those last 2 games to score runs and replicate what they did in game 1. But overall, I think Mets fans should be encouraged by the lineup. But then again, they were facing Pittsburgh. So the fact that they scored less runs in the final 2 games than they did in the first game against the ace, that's alarming to me. Look, wouldn't panic about the Mets, but I would absolutely note that the lineup looked much scarier in game 1 than it did over the last 2 games. That's the real contrast of the story. When we get back on Empire State of Sports, going to do the Empire State check, have a few debates we're going to talk about. ABS turning some heads yesterday, especially for the Twins manager, as a late call in that game pretty much sealed the deal for Baltimore and Ryan Helsley. From Landon Popovic on WIUR, the official radio network of Iona University.
Untouchable, unstoppable.
This is WIUR Sports Radio.
Hi, I'm Robbie Basil, president of WIUR Radio, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Have you ever wanted to call the biggest games, the biggest moments for the biggest names for Iona athletics? Then the newly founded WIUR Sports Radio is the place to be. Launched in January of 2025, our goal is to try and get broadcasters here at Iona an opportunity to learn, succeed, and get a chance to be on air. From getting to call the big moments at the hack.
Dinkins trying to go to the rack. Denied! Denied! Yafet Mundi!
To seeing the crack of the bat at City Park.
The line drive into left field, around third, and it kicks away! The Gales are going to win it in 10!
We make those moments happen on our brand new WIUR sports radio platform on Mixer. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me via email or to the rest of my e-board to join the club. We are WIUR Sports Radio, the new home of Iona Athletics. Now, back to the show on WIUR, Iona University Radio.
Yo, we're back on Empire State of Sports, live from the WIUR studio in the Murphy Center. I'm Landon Popovic, your host. Talked a lot of baseball. I want to shift gears to Empire State Check. Going to have 3 prompts. One of them is the Knicks. We'll tell you that right now. 2 of them are baseball. I'm going to give them a verdict. Whether they are approved, I send it back, means I don't like the take, or they're under construction, which means I haven't really bought into the take, but I could see myself going either way on it in the future. So the first one is the Knicks, obviously on a 2-game skid right now, coming off that 7-game win streak that didn't really feel like a 7-game win streak. This is where, for this, this is where I lean. I lean the fact that, those last 2 losses prove more than the win streak. Forgot to phrase the question. I'm leaning towards the fact that I am for the fact that those last 2 losses prove a lot more than the win streak. Because look, Knicks lost 114 to 103 against Charlotte, a game that they really had no excuses to lose. Gave up 38 first quarter points, trailed by 18 late in the third, and got crushed by Charlotte's shot making early. Look, Con Kneppel was a guy that absolutely went off, had 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists. LaMelo Ball had 22. Brandon Miller had 21. And the Hornets shot 70% in the first quarter. This Knicks defense is absolutely bipolar in the fact that it leans on Karl Anthony Towns and whether or not he feels like playing defense or not. And most games, the answer is no. Karl Anthony Towns is just soft, complains to the refs most of the game. I've said it over and over again. Not a fan of Karl Anthony Towns in New York. I almost bought in last year, especially when Brunson was out, but he hasn't done enough this year. And I think a lot of that Hornets loss comes off the back of him. Jalen Brunson had an absolutely incredible performance in that Hornets game, but it can't only be Jalen Brunson. It can't be. He had 26 points and 13 assists, a very nice double-double, but the Knicks never really controlled that game because of how abysmal that first quarter was. Reminds me similar to what happened in the Pacers Heat game last night, where it just seemed like the Knicks were just trying to claw their way back in that game, and in a game they should have won. And then last night against OKC, you lose 111 to 100, a game that I was fairly certain the Knicks would lose, but Brunson had 32, Towns had 15 points, 18 rebounds. So Cat felt like playing defense last night, which is why OKC didn't score as many as I thought they would. Wasn't an absolute blowout. And then Hart and Bridges each had 15, but they lost this game because they just don't know how to play down the stretch. Karl Anthony Towns started off hot, playing defense left and right. Seemed like he was here, there, everywhere, but then just couldn't keep up with that because Karl Anthony Towns, let's face it, does not put the effort in on the court sometimes. Thunder attempted 38 free throws to the Knicks 17. Shea scored 30, extending that 20-point streak of his, and scored 9 straight Thunder points after Caruso's 3 with 6:20 left. That really put the nail in the coffin, which, look, the Knicks cut it to 92-91 late in that game. They had a chance to win that game, and it was so brutal to see the Knicks just have that game slip away from them late because they don't know how to play stretch defense against a competitor, especially. But OKC really looked more like the composed team, the championship team that they are. And then you look at the case against that. A 7-game win streak is a 7-game win streak for the Knicks, but never really felt like it because they weren't really against competitive teams, had 2 wins against the Pacers. 7-game win streaks don't happen by accident, but when you only beat the Nets by 1 point, that's a problem because they are pretty much a glorified G League team. But the Knicks were coming into that Hornets game off the back of that win streak, looking to extend it. They were 48-26, pretty much neck and neck with Boston in the Eastern Conference standings. And I think they expected that the Hornets would be a pushover, but they had won 5 straight themselves and were tied in the East in the play-in race. Then with OKC, obviously a game that I just didn't expect the Knicks to win because they can't beat elite level competitors, especially this year. The Knicks were into a deep back and forth. That Thunder team had won 14 of its last 15. Obviously, pretty much the best team in the West, favored to win the NBA title. So if you want to argue that streak still means something, the best version of that take really is the Knicks did show a real level for over a week. And then the OKC loss especially was more about losing late to an elite team than being exposed as fraud. So my verdict for that one is approved. Those last 2 losses proved a lot more to me about that Knicks team than the prior win streak. Moving on. Had an absolute movie of a game last night. Orioles versus Twins. Josh Bell facing Ryan Helsley. Down 2, 8-6. Looked like he was about to work a walk on 3-2. Calls overturned. Minnesota manager goes absolutely nuts. Here's something I want to say about ABS before we get into this. I saw something interesting with Ken Rosenthal. I have to give credit where credit is due because I don't steal other people's work, unlike some people in the industry. League officials have told The Athletic that MLB is 95% confident that a pitch would be within 0.39 inches of the location where the ABS pinpoint is. The league also said that it is 99% confident that the location would be within 0.48 inches of where ABS says it landed. That's from Jason Stark, Major League Baseball umpire. So anything at that level or less than that is within the margin of error for ABS. And I don't think that's been talked about enough. And that pitch last night was called a strike off of 0.01 inches, I think it was. It was absolutely crazy. He had a sliver of the strike zone, was called a strike. And it would have been a walk for Josh Bell, extended that inning for Minnesota, who's, obviously looking to compete themselves in a lackluster Central Division. And look, if you hated last night, I get it. But the question I have is, did that ABS call prove that ABS is an overall bad thing for baseball? And like I said, if you hated it, I get it. That moment pretty much set everyone off in the 9th inning. Baltimore closer Ryan Helsley had a 3-0 pitch, ruled a ball, but catcher Adley Rutschman successfully challenged it, got it flipped to a strike. Then Josh Bell did the same thing. The pitch was 0.3 inches inside the edge of the zone. That is exactly the kind of moment that makes people say, what are we doing here? Because when it's within the margin of error, I think it's within reason to say that it should not be overturned. MLB themselves have admitted, like I just said, that ABS is not 100%. It's closer to 95 to 99%. You can also build, the anti-ABS case a lot off of the reaction. The challenge sequence led to what multiple reports called the first ABS-related ejection last night. We saw the Twins manager get ejected right after that. Derek Shelton argued that the Orioles had not signaled for the challenge fast enough. From a presentation standpoint, that is a nightmare version of this technology. I saw something that said I saw Tiki Barber say earlier that ABS, that call last night was absolutely abysmal, and that umpires would probably like it if ABS was just fully implemented and not just the challenge system. And I totally get that, because a lot of umpires are getting embarrassed, a la CJ Buckner. But look, it's a brutal look for ABS last night if you're trying to convince people that this improves the sport. But I have to say that I am overall against that ABS is bad for the game. I think it is very good, especially because I've seen Aaron Judge get robbed on so many strike calls in his career. But if we're being fair, the same sequence is also the argument as to why ABS exists in the first place. MLB's official rules for the challenge system say the player signals by tapping the cap or helmet, and successful challenges are retained. The review is then shown on the board and on the broadcast. In other words, the whole point is to correct calls that were wrong. So 0.3 inches, very tiny, right? But by the rule, still a strike, even though it's within the margin for error, which is the one thing that makes me kind of not agree with it. But there's also a bigger picture point here. Early return from the Orioles-Twins games were not just ABS hurt Minnesota. Baltimore reportedly went 4 for 5 on challenges in the game, which just shows how the human zone was already moving around. So Baltimore was pretty successful on their challenges. We can't have a strike zone be one thing for one umpire and then be a different thing for another umpire. I totally love this, especially because Buckner got 6 calls wrong and got him thrown in his face the other day. So my verdict is send it back. I love ABS. I love what it's done. It's going to take some getting used to for older fans especially, but I think it's overall been very good for the game. Now, the last one, obviously, Aaron Judge got into the headlines after opening day on Netflix, had an abysmal performance, struck out 4 times, had the good old golden sombrero. But 2 Judge homers is enough to say that he's back. Now, for this, I would say the positive case is simple. Obviously, after opening the year 0 for 7 with 5 strikeouts, then he comes back later in that game and homered in the Yankees win against the Giants, was a crucial part in that on Friday, and then homered on Saturday to close out the series. Another big part of that was a huge part of outscoring San Francisco 13-1. And there's even, a pro side to this. Judge used ABS to overturn a call and then hit a home run right after that. That's kind of goes back to the other prompt that ABS is bad for the game. I think that proved to me that it was good for the game. Not just because I'm a biased Yankee fan, but because I've seen that happen so much to Aaron Judge, where a count completely changes or an at-bat completely ends because Aaron Judge gets called on a pitch at his ankles just because he's 6'7". But the hesitation is also fair regarding Aaron Judge. Went 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts, as I mentioned, 0 for 7 start as a whole. So if someone says 2 swings isn't enough to fully declare that he's back, I get it. Because I know when Aaron Judge is hot, he's hitting home runs every single at bat. I watch Aaron Judge. He's getting on base every single at bat. I wouldn't say he's hot right now, but I also wouldn't say that he's a shell of what Aaron Judge was. So my verdict for whether or not Aaron Judge is completely back after those 2 home runs is under construction, because I can't fully buy into the fact that Aaron Judge is back after that abysmal World Baseball Classic final and opening day. But I do think he's taking steps in the right direction to becoming that scorching hot hitter we know as the captain, Aaron Judge. So now I just want to close things out. Yankees start a series with the Mariners tonight, and Mets start a series with the Cardinals. What both of these series could mean. Obviously, the Yankees now playing a team That is a lot better than the San Francisco Giants. I have to put that out there. Have a lot better pitching for one and have a lot better lineup for two. But there's someone on the Seattle Mariners that was also in the MVP conversation last year who a lot of people thought should have won MVP over Aaron Judge. That's Cal Raleigh. And he started the season absolutely terrible as well. 1 for 8. He had a stolen base, though. Got to say, big man got wheels sometimes. But whether or not, I think what's going to prove to me for the Yankees this series, this is going to prove a lot against the Mariners because obviously it's elite pitching. If that offense could hit that pitching, I think that's a very good sign for me and my hesitations for that lineup. And if the pitching can also stay hot against a Seattle Mariners team that is known for rallying back late in games, going to be a huge test for this bullpen that has yet to allow a run, knock on wood. And I got to see whether or not this lineup is really relying on Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton more than it could rely on other players. I know I've been harsh on both teams today, the Yankees and the Mets, despite good starts to the season. I think these two series are going to tell a lot. Now moving to the Mets side, they play the Cardinals. Cardinals, one of the youngest teams in baseball. I think the youngest team after being the oldest team in baseball the past few years. Love JJ Weatherholt. Love the energy that team is bringing night in and night out. I think the Mets are going to keep generating that first pitch pressure that we've seen all year. I need to see a lot more from Bo Bichette. Obviously, I think that top 3 is still in question, as I mentioned earlier. But going to be interesting what happens here in the second series as we continue opening week. Well, that'll do it from me on Empire State of Sports. I'm Landon Popovic, and I'm saying so long. And I'll see you in 2 weeks as we have off next week for Easter Monday. This has been Empire State of Sports live on WIUR, the official radio network of Iona University.
Iona University Radio.